The wind slammed the cafe door so hard it rattled the windows, and Claire's lone cupcake, one stubborn candle flickering, skidded toward the edge of the table. A boy in a yellow raincoat lunged, catching it like a lifeguard. "May I save your birthday?" he asked with grave 6-year-old seriousness. She nodded, and in that simple exchange, a thread was tied. His father, Jack, followed, tall, broad-shouldered, dripping from the storm, with the kind of calm that fills a room without trying. They sat at her table while rain lashed Harbor Light Cafe. Noah studied the candle. "Sometimes it's safer not to make a wish," Claire said. Jack introduced himself, talked about his woodworking shop. He listened without prying, the way someone does when they're more interested in hearing than being heard. Elena, the cafe owner, brought Storm coffee, risk pay for sitting near the windows. The conversation felt like the first time in years Claire hadn't been alone in her own birthday. Jack's lines, "Stubborn candles make the best wishes. Traditions carry people without dropping them," landed in her chest. She shared her own. "Don't fight the water. Learn how it holds you." It was the closest she'd come to admitting she used to be a swimmer, before the accident, before the chair. Storms have a way of stitching strangers together. By the time the rain eased, Claire knew Jack was raising Noah alone, building tables and boats with the same patience he offered people. Noah left her a dinosaur sticker for luck. Jack left her the possibility of a Tuesday ritual at Harbor Light. But Claire's father, Walter Whitmore, a man who treated control as love, didn't approve. He ordered an investigation into Jack's shop, not to find the truth, but to spread fog that would scare off clients. Jobs froze. Contracts vanished. Jack recognized the tactic. You don't need to prove a crack, just point and whisper. Walter called it protection. Claire called it a cage. When she refused to cut ties, he escalated, threatening to destroy Jack's work entirely. Afraid of costing Jack everything, Claire sent a 12-word text. "I can't see you anymore. Please don't contact me. I'm sorry." Jack read it 3 times, found no reply that wasn't begging. Days later, Noah asked to visit her. "She feels like family," he said. At the gates of Walter's estate, Noah called her name, his voice too honest to ignore. Maria, the housekeeper, delivered a small paper crane from Claire. "Hold fast. I'm trying." It was more than most got from inside those walls. Claire wrestled with her silence until she rolled into Jack's shop one morning, crane in her lap. "I'm done trying," she said. "I'm choosing. I choose us." Jack's eyes softened. "That's a good beam," he said. Walter arrived, ready to take her home. But in the space between them, Jack stood like a quiet support beam, steady and unyielding. Mason, Walter's counsel, broke ranks, confessing he'd written the fog letters under orders and stopped worse from happening. Elena called Walter out. "You don't own this room." Noah cut deeper. "You make her cry. That's not what daddies are supposed to do." Something shifted in Walter's face. Claire told him, "Fixing is furniture. Staying is family." For the first time, he said he'd try to learn to stand. They laid the first plank of a literal bridge over the creek behind Jack's shop. Working side by side, Jack cutting, Walter sanding, Noah hammering. Claire was the first to cross, Jack on one side, Walter on the other, the wood solid beneath her wheels. Under the gold light of a new morning, they gathered at the lighthouse for Claire and Jack's wedding. No chandeliers, no crowd, just the people who had crossed storms together. Walter admitted he'd been wrong about protection. Noah, as ring bearer, said, "When you build a bridge, you have to start on both sides." You guys started on both. Their vows were simple. "I choose you. On the days it's easy, and on the days it's work." They crossed the bridge they'd built, pausing halfway to look at their reflection. Different histories, one shared space. Walter joined them. Mason declared Tuesdays sacred, soup legally binding. Elena promised chairs that needed fixing. And Noah, grinning at his new grandpa, promised to teach him how to fold a paper crane, if he didn't rush the folds. By the time they reached the far bank, the harbor bells rang noon. The bridge behind them stood solid. Ahead was open water, and sometimes the strongest bridges aren't made of wood or steel at all, but of love, forgiveness, and the courage to begin again. So, if you've ever felt caught between storms and still water, maybe your bridge is waiting to be built. Where in the world are you listening from? Which part of this story stayed with you? Drop your thoughts below. Let's make this space a harbor of kindness and connection. The creek still sang under the bridge they'd built together, But life after a storm has its own tricky weather. A week later, Jack was back at the shop, sleeves rolled, shavings curling at his feet. Claire came by every other day. Not always with a reason. Sometimes just to sit with the smell of fresh maple and coffee. Walter had kept his word so far, but you could tell it wasn't easy for him to keep his hands out of the plans. One Tuesday, Elena leaned against the shop doorframe, coffee in hand. "Your dad's at Harbor Light," she told Claire, as if delivering the news of a wild animal sighting. Claire raised an eyebrow. Voluntarily, Elena smirked. "He's talking to Mrs. Caldwell about her leaky porch railing. And he's not lecturing. Progress." When they arrived, Walter was indeed on the cafe porch, measuring the rail while Mrs. Caldwell explained that her late husband had built it crooked on purpose to annoy the neighbor. Walter listened, tape measure steady, and for once, didn't correct her. When he saw Claire, he straightened, a little sheepish. "Jack says the corner's still brave," he said, almost shy, "but storms have long shadows." Jack got a call from a past client, a marina owner, saying someone from up high was quietly warning against hiring him. It wasn't Walter this time. Mason traced it to a rival builder who'd been circling the big waterfront contracts Jack had lost. The man was using the fog Walter started as free advertising for his own, safer business. Jack wanted to confront him. Claire said, "You taught me bridges hold. Let this one hold." Walter, overhearing, said, "Sometimes you have to fight for your beams." It was the first time the two men agreed without realizing it. They decided to fight together, but not with lawsuits. Walter pulled strings for once without pulling people down. Mason arranged a public safety inspection at the shop, inviting the local paper. Jack passed with flying colors. The photos showing him and Noah building alongside a very familiar billionaire, sanding edges like an apprentice. The rivals' whisper campaign died faster than it started. The twist came from Noah. He'd been folding paper cranes for weeks, leaving them in random spots, on the cafe counter, at the marina, even on the porch of the rival builder's office. Each one had 3 words inside. "Build, don't break." When asked, he just shrugged. Cranes go where they need to. Elena called it 6-year-old diplomacy. By early spring, the bridge behind Jack's shop had weathered its first real storm. Claire rolled across in the rain, just to hear the sound of water under wood. Walter joined her halfway, hands in his coat pockets. Face softer than she'd ever seen. "I used to think staying meant standing guard at the gate," he said. "Now I think maybe it means crossing bridges you didn't build." Jack met them at the far side with a thermos of coffee. "Figured you two might be here," he said. Noah came splashing up from the creek, soaked but grinning. "The bridge is holding," he announced. Jack ruffled his hair. "So are we." Later that afternoon, Walter lingered in the shop while Claire and Noah worked on sanding a new tabletop. He picked up Jack's old carpenter's pencil, the one from the first bridge, and turned it over in his hand. "This little stick built a lot more than wood," he murmured. Jack didn't disagree. The real high point came when Harbor Light hosted its first Tuesday supper. A long table stretched through the cafe with room for whoever wandered in. Claire sat between Jack and Walter, Noah darting between guests, Mason trying to keep up with Elena's soup refills. Someone brought a guitar, someone else a pie, and the night filled with the kind of laughter that doesn't check who's sitting next to you. Halfway through, Walter stood, cleared his throat, and, without a speech prepared, said, "If you told me 6 months ago I'd be here sanding chairs and eating soup with strangers, I'd have called you insane. But maybe insanity's just another word for finally paying attention." He looked at Claire. "I'm still learning to stand." By the end of the night, the rain had started again. Jack walked Claire to the bridge, the lamplight catching on the wet planks. She stopped halfway, hand resting on the rail. "We've built a lot since that first candle," she said. "And we're not done," Jack replied. They stood there a long while, listening to the creek and the rain, until Noah's voice carried from the far side. "Come on. Soup's getting cold." Claire laughed, the sound unguarded, and crossed the rest of the way with Jack beside her. Sometimes the strongest bridges aren't about connecting land. They're about connecting people who didn't know they could meet in the middle and stay there. So maybe that's your challenge. Wherever you are, find someone's bridge, walk halfway, and see if they meet you. And if they don't yet, leave something there, a paper crane, a stubborn candle, so they know it's safe to cross when they're ready.